next guest is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of 20 thrillers, including Near Dark, Backlash, one of Suspense Magazine's best books of the year, Spy Master, which the Washington Times called one of the all-time best thriller novels, The Last Patriot, nominated for Best Thriller of the Year by the International Thriller Writers Association, and Blowback, one of the top 100 killer thrillers of all time, according to NPR. His next book, Black Ice, brings back his beloved hero for yet another red-hot adventure. Brad Thor, welcome to Thriller Talk.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Ryan.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Before we jump into the books and the new one, which is fantastic, I want to ask you, so I know a lot of your fans already know you love to travel. You once even had a TV show, Traveling Light. So as COVID restrictions eased up, where was the first place you jetted off to?
I wish. The one thing I have trouble doing now, because I have teenagers, is when I can jet off. Now they've got summer jobs and all this kind of stuff. So I have yet to jet off. I'm really, really itching to go. I want to go back to Europe. I've got a ton of friends I haven't seen and, going on a year and a half. It'll be almost 2 years. So yeah, I'd like to go back, but my kids have got summer jobs and I've got one that's leaving for college in the fall. And so just trying to make the most of it now. I'm looking forward to having them both in college so that I can just take my laptop and go whenever I want and just work from overseas.
That would sound like a lovely spot. And so where would your first dream place be?
I get several places that I love. I love Switzerland. I love Scandinavia. I love Greece. I went to school in Paris for a while. I grew up speaking French. So France is fantastic. But it all just depends how Portugal was doing really, really well. And then they closed down again. They got put on the UK's warning list. The UK's got some color coded lists like we used to have for DHS here and everything. And so Portugal's just been crushed. And I love Portugal and I would love to go back and spend some money there. A lot of Americans think Europe ends at Spain and it doesn't. It goes on to Portugal and they're great people. The food's fabulous. It's a real value for the money. And then my buddy Kyle Mills is in Spain. So I figure if I get over to that neck of the woods, I can see Kyle and his wife, Kim.
That sounds heavenly. Yeah, I also did a trip down the Algarve and couldn't believe how the seafood was extraordinary and the wine so inexpensive.
It's fantastic. You can stretch a buck there so far. It's terrific. And these people are, a lot of these places like Southern Italy, like Portugal, like Spain, particularly in the South, Greece, they make their entire year off of tourism. So they've really been hurt by COVID and they are anxious to get tourists back. So I hope that a lot of people, once they feel comfortable traveling again, will go. I know I will.
So Brad, you were really ahead of the curve with the Athena Project, one of my favorite of your novels, and creating strong female protagonists. So what is it about your background or worldview that made you a leader in this area?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a daughter. And I am surrounded by very talented, very strong, intelligent women, whether it's my editor, my agent, my wife, my VP here at my company, and my daughter as well. So I have these people, and I wanted to create, in my thrillers, even before Athena Project and after, a female character has always been integral to the plot, to solving whatever the problem was in the book. So my protagonist, Scott Harvath, doesn't get it done without the help of a female character. So they've never been sex objects. They've never been window dressing. It's always been an homage to the women in my life who I respect. And I wanted to really create characters for my daughter in particular so that she could look up to these characters and other young women that might want to pursue a career in the intelligence community, in law enforcement, in the military. Thrillers, like the political thrillers that I do, they really, for some people, serve as an on-ramp to those careers of service to the country. So I take that stuff very seriously. So I find that the truer I am to those female characters, the more people relate to them and the more people like them. And they're not that different from the guys. To tell you the truth, the all-female Delta Force team in Athena Project, they're very highly competitive women. And my wife was a doctor for the U.S. ski team. And I remember the women that were on the U.S. ski team, and they were amazing. And one of our dear friends who Harvath is named after is a very tough, hard charger at the Department of Justice. So I've been lucky enough to be around incredible women that are out there taking risks and doing some really cool things. So the book, Athena Project, was a natural for me because I've kind of marinated in this world of really talented, super successful women.
Brad, very few authors are doing what you're doing. Like, no one has a series that's gone on for this long at this level. You're now 20 books in. Like you, Daniel Silva, Lee Child, Vince Flynn, if he were still alive, may rest in peace. You're in uncharted waters here. So, one, did you ever think 2 decades ago you'd still be writing Scott Harvath thrillers? And what's your secret to always topping yourself year after year?
Well, it's a very nice way to set that up, Ryan. Thank you very much for that compliment. Uh, when I first went into writing, after I wrote my first book, and I went in to see the publisher to discuss the second book, I was going to completely go in another direction. I was not going to carry on the Scott Harvath character. That wasn't the plan. I always loved reading. I loved reading everybody, but I really liked Michael Crichton, and I thought it was pretty cool because in a lot of Crichton's books, most of them, it's a brand new protagonist each time. So you can give your hero a new background, a new story, new backstory, all that kind of stuff. You're not sticking with the same person. And my editor, Emily Bessler, asked me, she said, how many authors do you read because you want to go on another adventure with that character? How many times have you picked up a book by that author, read the jacket, and said, well, this is a part of the world that maybe I'm not that interested in, but I love this character, and I can't wait to be back in that character's world? And I said, oh, yeah, it's happened a ton. And she said, okay, that's really what we've seen with giving your first book to readers. They love this Scott Harvath character, and they want him to come back. And she said, you're free to write whatever you want, but my job is to try to help guide you as your editor. And I'm telling you, if you don't bring back the Harvath character, your readers are going to get mad. You need to bring him back. And so that's why I brought Harvath back. It was the insistence of by my editor. But it is a challenge, Ryan, because you have to reveal a little bit more of the character each single outing. So you want to learn a little bit more about Harvath. You don't necessarily want him to change. You know, when I go to see a James Bond movie, I want Bond to pretty much be the same at the end as he is at the beginning. Same thing with Indiana Jones. I don't want these guys sitting around holding hands, drinking constant Comet tea, and talking about their feelings. I really want them to be the same. I want them to be human, but I don't need a big character development arc. That's not what I'm doing. I'm selling, toes in the sand, book in the hand, action, can't stop turning the pages. I want Harvath to be likable and relatable. So that's where I put a lot of my focus. I may reveal a little bit here and there about his past and that kind of stuff, add in some other things that are fun for readers. The hard thing is coming up with plots that I haven't done before. So Black Ice is my 20th Harvath novel. I did the one spin-off novel, the Athena Project, that we were just talking about. So it's 21 novels overall, but 20 in the Harvath series. And back to Bond, I tell people that my books are like the James Bond movies, that if the new one is out and you've never seen a Bond movie before, you can go right to the theater and see that new one. And you're not going to feel like, oh, I should have seen them all the way from the beginning. You can jump anywhere in my books, jump in and enjoy it. I'm always trying, I want my books to stand the test of time. So I want them to be evergreen, but I also want to take from the real world, things that are happening right now or about to happen on your doorstep tomorrow. I want you to read the books and have this white knuckle thrill ride. But when you finish one of my novels, I want you to feel like, wow, I'm smarter for having read this book. I actually learned a couple things and I wasn't trying to. It's funny, there's a guy, an ex-CIA guy that gave me a hard time once about one of my books. And I said, listen, I'm not writing an instruction manual for you guys to teach at the farm to all the new intelligence officers that are coming into the CIA, okay? I get it. There would be 8 meetings before Harvath got to this person, but no reader is going to sit through 8 separate cutouts in these 8 meetings to get there. I said, this is the difference between you and the CIA and me as an author is my job first and foremost is to entertain people. And Elmore Leonard had a great line. And his line for young writers was, leave out the parts that people skip. And it's a really good piece of advice. You don't want, I read Clancy growing up, but man, would I skim. Yeah. I don't need 5 pages about how a guidance system for a missile works. All I need to know is there's a couple of spec ops guys that are on a hillside and they're lasing a target and the missile's going to lock in on that laser and is going to hit the target. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know about gyroscopes and all this kind of stuff and who fueled the missile. I don't need that. So that's really the delicate balance is wanting these books to be as real as possible, because I do have people at the CIA, the FBI, the SEALs, Delta, the State Department, the White House. I have people all over that read and enjoy these books. So enjoyment is first. I want to get as close to the truth, like lead you right up to the edge of the hedgerow and let you peer over into those worlds of espionage and special operations, that kind of stuff. But again, I need you turning those pages. I want this to be a roller coaster for you. And that's my number one goal, is for you to say, oh, I can't wait for the next one.
Well, two things. You can absolutely pick this book up, not having read the other ones, and dive right in. It's another. You're the king of the one night read. I think it's 10 books in a row now. I've read all of yours in one sitting. Like seriously, you can't put them down. People always ask me, and I've done interviews. Who's really good at pulling the reader? I always say you, because your chapter transitions, segues, and endings are always so good. You get to the end and you're tired, and I get tired, and I'm like, I'll probably read like one more. I can't stop because you don't let me there. And then I go to the next chapter ending, and I'm like, this will probably be the last one. And then you drop something else on me, and I'm like, I can't stop here. So it really is the one night, up all night, one sit read. Secondly, I don't know if I walk away smarter necessarily from your books, but I do walk away more scared. I always walk away like, I really hope that can't happen. And then I turn on the news, and it gets more terrifying because your books always play out in real time. They're always one step ahead of the headlines. It's the craziest thing I've seen. You and Joe Rosenberg really do tread dangerously towards like a prophetic fiction faction, which I think Kim's gonna bring up to you. But it's wild. Even once again, I don't want to give anything away, but once again, it's like I've read Black Ice, and I turn on the news, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, a lot of that's played out. So, so when I say you're smarter, maybe I should say you're better informed about what's going on kind of on a geopolitical level. I'm not lecturing. I'm not giving, a master class in global diplomacy or what's happening vis-a-vis this country and that country and all that kind of stuff. I'm just laying out what I hope is an exciting plot, layering it or letting it play out against the backdrop of things that are really happening in the world. And so you have this great adventure, but you close that book and then you start seeing stuff on the news and you're like, hey, I read about that in that book. I understand why that's important and why that part of the world, this thing's going on there and that kind of stuff.
It's fun and terrifying at the same time. It really is. We hope
Like
there's a lot of Harvats out there.
Fun and terrifying. Yeah, there's not enough, but we do have some real good ones out there.
So on Brad's next cover, King of the One Night Read.
There yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Actually, what we've been talking about leads to my next question. I love when I read a book and I'm both entertained and educated, but as Brad, as you said, it's not sort of visceral. It just sort of, it's part of the story. It's enjoyable. It doesn't feel like a lecture whatsoever. I know that when you went to Afghanistan and you were, I guess, with Black Ops people for the Apostle, I wondered if you could talk maybe a little bit about some stories or things that happened there that you were able to integrate into the book.
Well, so that's where I got hooked on Red Bull. And so there was a ton of Red Bull in the Apostle because there were no Starbucks and you needed to stay awake. You could not, you had to pay attention to your surroundings and know what's going on and everything. So there was a lot of Red Bull in the Apostle. Best fried chicken I've ever had in my life was in Jalalabad. So the book was interesting because the people in Afghanistan were fascinating. So there is a code of honor. Marcus Luttrell talks about it in Lone Survivor, his true story about survival. His team got wiped out and he was the lone survivor. And he talks about the code of Pashtun Wali with the Pashtu. In this, I got to see as well, where we would go into certain villages because we were invited by the village elders. And the code is that if any attack would happen, the entire village would defend you to the death because you were their guest. Try to get somebody to help you change a tire on the way to the airport. And I mean, these people are willing to die for you because you're their guest. So there was some interesting stuff with being on and off forward operating bases and how that stuff works. A little bit of how the ISAF forces were working. There's a Canadian component in the Apostle. So there was just a little of so the nuts and bolts on the ground stuff. And I have a ton of readers in Canada who were saying, when are you going to put some Canadian stuff in there? So I did in the Apostle. It was kind of cool. And there had even been, there had been a fallen SEAL And Benchmade Knife Company had done a commemorative knife to celebrate him, and I had one of my characters carrying that knife, and I heard from the SEAL's mom that she thought that was really cool. That in the book somebody was carrying his commemorative knife and was remembering him, and she thought it was just kind of a nice memorial to her son, even though it was happening in fiction. She appreciated that. So just being on the ground, the sights, the sounds, the smells. You know, we could hear gunfire. We didn't get shot at all. But just down to, you know, I wasn't supposed to wear sunglasses because nothing could paint you as a Westerner from a distance better than a pair of sunglasses. And just growing a beard to go over there because that was such the machismo culture with the Afghans and stuff. And then even in the book, I was talking about capital T Taliban versus lowercase t Taliban, the people that joined the Taliban just to survive, kind of the way some kids are dragged into it in inner cities into gangs. And they're not really gangs, that if they had better opportunities, they wouldn't gravitate towards gangs if they had other opportunities, blah, 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 blah. So there's all the color details. You know, I wasn't writing a dissertation on Afghanistan, but it was cool to hear from people who had served over there to say, wow, you nailed this, or the way they do the tea, or whatever it is. It's just kind of fun to be there. Just a once in a lifetime experience.
Okay, Brad, I can't not ask this one. So this is going to shock some people, I know, but on top of being a really big Scott Harvath fan, I'm also a pretty big Mitch Rapp fan. And in fact, my youngest son's name is Mitchell Ryan Scott, with one T like Harvath, by the way. Anyways, I keep seeing where you are asked, who would Harvath team up with if we were ever to team up with one fictional character? Couldn't help but notice you often respond, Mitch Rapp. Coincidentally, Kyle Mills, who you mentioned, is in Spain right now.
Yep.
He gets asked this question a lot too. And in fact, last year he did his book event and was asked this very question, and he responded, Scott Harvath. Then he said, you know, that you guys have been friends a long time, go way back. So we got to make it happen. I got to get with Brad. So, like, what's the deal? What do we got to do to make this happen like yesterday? And all kidding aside, is there a chance that might ever happen? But also, why do you think Harvath and Rapp would be the perfect duo?
That's a great question. So first of all, it'd be great to work with Kyle because I was friends with Kyle before I was ever an author. So my sort of godfather, one of my dad's dearest friends from growing up, is super tight with Kyle's dad because they were both in the FBI together. So I used to see Kyle every year in Sun Valley, Idaho at this big FBI conference every summer. So Kyle's known my kids since they were born, Kyle and his wife, Kim. And so it's just a really nice relationship. And in fact, I had been talking to Kyle before he ever did anything with Vince's estate about maybe spinning off The Troll and doing a series with Kyle writing with me on The Troll and doing something there. And it didn't materialize for different reasons. We were going in different directions at the time. I would love to work with Kyle because we're just such good buddies. And I think he's a fabulous writer. I think it would be really interesting to pair Rapp with Harvath because their backgrounds are really different.
Yeah.
So Harvath comes out of the special operations community. Rapp's been on the CIA side the entire time. So there's a different kind of upbringing for both of them. I think they both have troubled pasts and a lot of heartache and broken things in their past. But I think they would work together very well because they're both unafraid to color outside the lines. And they realize that mission is first. I love to talk about the OSS a lot in my novels, the precursor to the CIA, and Wild Bill Donovan, who ran the OSS, whose motto was, if you fall forward in service of the mission. And I think Harvath and Rapp, I think there'd be a lot of good one-liners too, as they're both like one-upping each other, you know. So I think I think that would make it awesome. But at the end of the day, it might not come down to me. It might not come down to Kyle. It might come down to Vince's widow and the estate and what they would want, you know. So maybe if Kyle and I pitched, they might like it. Who knows? Maybe we just do a short story, something fun for fans for Christmas or something. I don't know, but I would love to do it.
I think that's going to get some people excited just hearing that.
I love it. I hope it happens too. That'd be really exciting. And I can imagine how much fun it would be for the two of you being such good friends to co-write, you know, back and forth. And like you said, the zingers. So Brad, over your career, you've had many well-deserved accolades and awards and honors. Which moment in your career are you most proud of?
Oh, well, I've got to tell you, in my career, so there's no, I had wanted to write a novel forever. And on my honeymoon, my wife asked me, what would you regret on your deathbed never having done? I've told the story a bunch of times. And I said, writing a novel and getting it published. And she said, okay, when we get home, 2 hours a day, protected time, start writing. And when I finished writing that novel, Lions of Lucerne, it was the greatest feeling in the world because I had started a novel after college and didn't finish it. I was afraid, what if it wasn't any good? I think we all have that little voice in the back of our heads that can talk us out of things for fear of embarrassment. And I really believe that which we're most destined to do in life, we're also most afraid of. So that was a great personal feeling for me. Professionally was when I got my first #1 for The Last Patriot, and I was at Thriller Fest. So I was in the taxi cab. I had been downtown. I was headed back. We were at the Hyatt, like the Grand Hyatt that year. And I was supposed to do something with my pals, Steve Berry and James Rollins. We were doing a little video thing, and I was in the taxi cab, and I got the call from my agent. I don't know if we were at a late lunch or what it was, but the New York Times list had come out. I found out that I had hit #1. So to hit that #1, to be able to celebrate with peers and readers at Thriller Fest, I think that was probably one of the coolest moments of all.
Well, I'm happy to hear it happened there. That's great news.
Yeah.
And what future goals motivate you to get to that desk every
So it's a good question. So my dad is a no longer active Marine, and my mom was a flight attendant for TWA. And we grew up in my family, Midwestern values were really, really serious. And my parents said, you show up every day at work like it's your first day on the job, and also understand that if you don't give it your all, it could be your last. So I've got this. I talked to a friend in the mental health field. I told him this view I had, and there's a term for it in psychiatry or psychology that I don't know if it's beginner's mindset or what it is, but it's you don't believe your own hype. And so you're constantly trying to get better. So if I'm not writing, I'm reading about writing, because I believe being an author is something you can constantly get better at. So off season, when I'm not in the midst of promoting a book or writing or editing, I'm reading books on writing. I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to come up with better twists and better character development. It is one of the, I joke that airline pilot and author are the only two jobs you can drink on the job. And I've got a buddy who's a pilot. I say that to him all the time. And he's like, not funny. And I'm like, I actually think it's pretty funny. But the constant ability to grow is what brings me to my desk, to know that I can be better today than I was yesterday. And all it takes is me applying myself. Seat of pants to seat of chair, as somebody once said. But it is tough because there's a lot of stress when you try to top yourself. That was such a flattering thing that Ryan said. And I just had a retired national security advisor for the White House just put out a tweet, got to read Black Ice early, and said, at this point in his career, Brad Thor could rest on his laurels, but he still knocks it out of the park every time and gets better with every single book. So it's nice when you say something like that, Kimberly, and a national security advisor says something like that, because that's you're seeing what I'm trying to do. Because I tell people, I don't work for the publisher. I work for the readers. Those are my bosses. So when they go to Goodreads or Barnes and Noble or Amazon, wherever they leave their stars after reading a book, that's my annual performance review. And I want to get 5 stars. So it's just not in my nature to phone it in. You're trusting me to put down your hard-earned money to buy a Brad Thor book. So you can go out and make more money, but what you can't get back is the time you invest in reading one of my books. So it's incumbent upon me to give you the best I'm capable of. And I'm not satisfied with last year being the best. This year has to be better than last year. So that's kind of it's frustrating. It's stressful at times. But I think if it was easy, it wouldn't be any fun.
It makes it fun to be a fan of yours, because we kind of know every year you're not phoning it in. I'm excited every year to cover your stuff. I always tell people, buy 2 copies, one for you, one for someone else, because when you finish this thing, you're going to want to talk about it with someone. It's really rough for me because I get it early, thankfully, so I can review, and I have no one to talk about it with. I'm just trying not to spoil it for everybody, and I have no one to talk about how awesome it is with. So that's rough. But yeah, I mean, there's so many authors that I won't even name names, but I've talked to publishers, and I've literally heard them say, so many books in, they lost the magic. And I don't know. It's so fun to watch, because again, it really is uncharted waters. There just aren't series there are in other genres, but our genre, there's not. You and Silva and Child, and even Lee Child is now kind of stepped away. Yeah. So it's like, how long can you keep it going? I can't wait to find the answer out. I hope it's a lot longer. Um, but okay, so Brad, you do these great segments on today's show, where you and other authors, of course, recommend books.
Mhm.
Have you read anything great lately? And who are some of your very favorite authors?
So in the genre, I just read Chasing the Lion by AJ Tata, which is great. And I've known Tony for many years. I knew Tony when he was earlier in his writing career. Delta Force buddy of mine had introduced me to Tony while Tony was still in. He was General Tata, still in the military. So Tony was kind enough to send me Chasing the Lion, which is fantastic. There is in the thriller genre, but not exactly my style in the thriller genre, is a fabulous new one that I recommended on the Today Show, which is called The Plot. And it's about a creative writing teacher who has an arrogant student that doesn't want to listen to any of the teacher's advice and says, I got the perfect idea for a book. And the teacher's like, oh, you arrogant, smug SOB. Yeah, what's your idea? And the idea is fantastic. And then the student ends up dying and the teacher steals the idea. This teacher is a failed novelist, has not written in like a decade, writes the book, steals it from the dead student, writes the book, huge success, like smash, like kind of Da Vinci Code kind of success. And as everybody's reading it around the world, all this kind of stuff. And then the teacher gets an email one day that said, you are a thief. And I mean, like the hairs are standing up on my arm. And it's, she's and it's so funny. I've had so many things on my head. I wish I'd had the book right here. Again, it's called The Plot. And she wrote You Should Have Known, which they made into The Undoing, which I believe was on HBO with Nicole Kidman, which was a great, great series. So fabulous, fabulous book. That's terrific. And a new author that I'm 2 books into now. He's only got 2 out, and I love this guy to death. I got a chance to interview him. It's Alex Michaelides, who did The Silent Patient, that spent a year on the New York Times list a year ago. And his new one out is called The Maidens, which just debuted at #2. And I emailed him to congratulate him. Great thriller. And he got beat out by Patterson and former President Bill Clinton. And I said, well, you and I, Alex, are in a very small club because when Patterson and Clinton wrote their first book about 3 years ago, I also took the #2 spot and didn't get the #1 spot. So I said, we are the only 2 people that Clinton and Patterson have ever been able to beat. That's a very small club. I don't know if that makes them feel any better, but that's hard competition. And, you know, Patterson's done so much for just books and bookstores and reading in general that a lot of people are like, doesn't it bug you? I'm like, no, nobody is competition in this genre. You know, if we're getting people to read, that does well for everyone. So I want people to be reading. And if they just want to read Patterson books, great. It's great for kids and other people to see people reading. I think it's one of the things that I like about our genre is there are competitive people. I'm competitive. I want to get to #1 every time, but we have so many people that are so helpful. Like I could call Steve Barry tonight or James Rollins or Tony Tata or, you know, so many people, Kyle Mills, and just, or Mark Green, anybody, and just be like, hey, I'm kind of stuck on this. I know I don't normally talk to you about plots, but you had this issue you talked about 3 years ago when Ryan and Kimberly interviewed you. How did you work through that? And they wouldn't think that I'm stealing anything. They'd be glad to help me. So it's really a fun genre to work in. And I constantly refer people out to other people's books. You know, Jack Carr, another great author, Devil's Hand was a fabulous, fabulous book. He's now working on book #5. You know, we've got some really, really solid people. As people like Lee Child leave the genre, you've got people coming up like Jack Carr. So we're not at a loss for great writing in the thriller genre.
No, I think it was Harlan Coben over BoucherCon, I think a few years ago, talking to new writers and said, we're not competing. We can all be successful together. Also, this is a joke, but do not call Mark Graney for advice like that. I know one time my agent said, if you can write something with the secret sauce that Mark Graney uses. So I called Mark and I told him, I said, what's your secret sauce? He says, dude, I have no idea. I've been trying to figure that out since book 1. So that was no help at all, Mark. I love you, but that was no help. But that was a funny story that I had with him. So, but I think you're right. I think that's what makes our genre so cool.
Yeah, and Harlan's a great example. I love Harlan. So I've done the Today Show book picks on set with Harlan. And I've got his cell phone number. I can pick it up, text him right now, and all that. Because in fact, I should make sure this is off. I should have done it before we started. But Harlan's terrific. I love him, and he's knocking it out of the park because he's got not only the success with the books, but all of the TV stuff. So
They should bring back Netflix from Netflix to COVID.
yeah, Coben flicks.
Yeah,
Coben flicks. Yeah,
definitely.
Harlan flicks. Net Coben.
There you go.
Yeah, no, he's just such a nice guy. He's like, oh, Brad, we've got this great book club. Next time you're out on the East Coast, you need to come. You'll love everybody on it. Yeah. So anyway, just again, I can count on one hand some of the kind of people that I've bumped into in 20 plus years that I was like, if I never see that person again, it'll be okay. And I probably just caught somebody on a bad day. But like Clive Cussler was delightful. He couldn't have been a nicer guy. God rest his soul. I remember the first time I met him. And I got this old picture of me and Clive in a hotel lobby together in New York City. Just super, super people. Nelson DeMille, one of the nicest guys. I'm a huge fan of Nelson's, by the way. He is and his John Corey character is probably the funniest. Like if Kyle and I were going for one-upping each other in a Scott Harvath, Vince Flynn thing, in the back of my mind, the bar would be set at, is this a Nelson DeMille level joke? You know what I mean? Is this one-upmanship at the level of a John Corey? Because
He's one of the most fun authors to interview. I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and I asked him that question. I said, your characters are so funny and so sarcastic. How much of that is you, and how much of that is just you make that up? And I'll never forget, on the record, he said, well, if you ask my ex-wives, that's probably too much of me. But if you ask anyone else, I make that up. So he's great.
Yeah, he's totally great. Love him.
He's known so much also, I think, just for his voice. Like you could, take out the name from John Corey and you'd still know who wrote that. That's what I like, right? It's so signature.
Yep.
Brad, I really respect, like we talked about earlier, how you're just striving for improvements. I just wondered if you had any resources to recommend to newer authors.
Yeah, there's some real kind of, I'm going to say, established solid books. So one of our dear friends, and he renamed the book, and I could kill him because every time I give the title, it's wrong, and I'm like, well, shame on you for changing it because I memorized it, 20 years ago, David Morrell, and it was lessons learned from a lifetime of writing, and he's changed that. Or was that Stephen King's and David Morrell's books? So Stephen King did On Writing, and David Morrell's original title was Lessons Learned from a Lifetime of Writing, which I thought was a great, great title. But maybe he felt his lifetime of writing wasn't through the lifetime, and I don't know why he changed the title. But this is why I don't think you should rebrand a book. I think it's in the marketplace, but he's got his reasons. I'm sure they're excellent. And David, if you're watching this, I apologize, but it is cemented in my head forever, the original title. So anybody who's looking to improve their craft, those are the two best books, in my opinion, is David Morrell's book about writing and Stephen King's book about writing. Those are fantastic. I just picked up, what is it? Lamott's book, Bird by Bird, which Alex Michaelides had recommended in the talk that we did. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm constantly looking to be better. And I haven't read that. And he also recommended The Woman in White, just as a story in general. He said he named I believe it was his bad guy in The Silent Patient was one of the names of the bad guy in The Woman in White. I'm like, okay, Alex has got two things being turned into movies and TV or whatever. He's a great writer. I love his writing. And if this is what's informed his writing, I really believe in that Tony Robbins line, which is if you sow the same seed, you can reap the same rewards. So when I meet successful people, I like to ask them the same question, Kimberly. It's, where do you get your inspiration? What have been some of the things that have shaped you or guided you? So I just bought Bird by Bird, Lamott's book, and then The Woman in White. So that's next on my list for reading as soon as I get done with touring and everything for Black Ice.
I can also recommend The Story Genius by Lisa Cron.
Okay.
Cron. It's absolutely fascinating, and it comes at, the character at a very different angle. Anyway, just Story Genius.
Genius.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And so before we move on from that topic, do you have any advice for newer authors? I mean, you've lived and breathed this for 20 years now. What would you say to newer authors?
Well, so I can't remember if Ryan and I talked about this or it was somebody else. I always get myself in trouble. I think you really need to shove the wax in your ears and lash yourself to the mast to navigate through the self-publishing waters. I know a lot of people that get frustrated and turn to self-publishing rather quickly, who
Yeah.
maybe if they'd hung in a little bit longer could have broken through at one of the big five publishers or whatever. Everybody's got to chart their own course. They don't have to go the way that I went. But it's interesting how many people I've talked to, and they're like, yeah, I just kind of wanted to get it out there. I felt the information was timely, and I didn't want to wait anymore. So what I tell people about approaching the business of publishing is, uh, you got to get an agent. That's really the big thing. And agents will tell you, and I disagree with agents, and I'm sure there's more than two of them that don't like that I put this piece of advice out there. Um, I think the greatest resource for finding agents, this isn't what the agents don't like. The greatest resource for finding agents, I think, is it used to be called the Writer's Digest Guide to Literary Agents. Now it's just called the Guide to Literary Agents. And it's like a phone book, like an old phone book. So you can look, whatever your genre is, you can go to that section of the book and you will see lists of agents who are looking for new writers. Um, Agents will tell you, here's the part I get in trouble with agents, and I do not care because I'm a writer and I'm going to always take the side of writers. Agents will tell you to only approach one agent at a time. But guess what? There wasn't the Mel Brooks thing where Moses came down with these 10 commandments. And one of the things on the broken, third tablet was only query one agent at a time. If it takes you 3 months to get an answer back, and that's fast. If it takes you 3 months to get an answer back from an agent, and that agent says no, and you have to go through 12 agents before you finally get an agent, that's 3 years out of your life on your first book. So I tell people pick 5, 10, probably a good 5 to 10 agents that you think are perfect for you, and shotgun it. Send them all out at the same time. And the agent who's smart enough, who's got best taste and realizes how good your stuff is going to get back to you quickest. But this stuff, a query one agent at a time, I don't care. I always tell writers, shotgun approach.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. Because you wait way too long, and look how many authors pile up rejections, successful authors. I mean,
Me
the
too.
publishers don't want to hear this, but they're not always right. Vince Flynn self-published. Tom Clancy couldn't get a publisher. John Grisham. I mean, how many times have we seen this? And Kyle Mills jokes that he had so many rejections that he tacked up on his corkboard, it fell off the wall. Like, if he would have waited 3 months for each one of those,
Yeah.
he's probably just putting out his debut right now. Okay, so
Yep.
I totally agree with you. Get it out to agents and see what they think. That's probably the smartest approach, and especially right now when it's competitive. Anyways, there's so much out there because so many more people, especially coming off 2020, everyone's locked inside. I think so many people thought, I've always wanted to write this book. Maybe I'll try it now. And I think there's more stuff flooding the market than ever before, which I think is really good for our genre and our industry. So you mentioned Lifetime as an author and all that. That really segues perfectly into my question. So before Kim gets to Black Ice, Brad, I want to go back to the beginning. So we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the Lions of Lucerne, and I
Next
think
year.
it was last summer when we talked. You mentioned that you might do something special for that milestone. So is there anything in the works that you can share with us?
Nothing I can share with you now. So we're still trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. Do we release like a special new, it's kind of like all right, it's the 50th anniversary of The Godfather, so what do? Do you get stuff that was cut and you have deleted stuff? So we're trying to find the right mix of things, that sweet spot that would make it, because I don't want to do it just to do it. I only want to do
Yeah.
it if it adds something to the first book for readers. Again, this would be my way of saying thank you, especially to those people that were there from the beginning and are still there now, and those people that came in halfway and went back to the beginning and have come all the way through. So even if January of 2002 is when I first published, and that's awesome. If you've been with me for the whole, almost 20 years, great. If you just started reading my books 6 months ago in lockdown and now you're all caught up, that's also great. You're all family to me. So if I go do something special with the Lions of Lucerne, I really want it to be something that fans, my bosses, those readers are going to say, okay, yeah, this was worth it. I'm glad he took the time to do this. Give me a behind the scenes on that. So I don't know what it'll be, We just did something special for Black Ice where if we've got I have it on Facebook where if you go to this URL for Simon and Schuster and you've pre-ordered the book, I put together a special reader's guide because I wanted to give people no spoilers, but I wanted to get them in the mood for the book and give them some behind the scenes and stuff like this. And I've heard from so many people like, I love these things. I love when you kind of open the universe up a little bit more, whether it's a song list on Spotify, whether you throw in a drink recipe, a little travel guide. We do all this stuff for the books because I am taking all this in when I'm writing and I'm simmering in all this stuff. And I want the reader to have this, but if I can't put it in the book and make it work, this is a fun way to also do it. A little bit of bonus content, if you will.
I love that. I want a director's cut. That's what I want. Well, the lines of the director's cut, where you have your commentary in there about here's what I was thinking then, and here's how I came up with that, and that's my vote.
It's kind of cool. And maybe, yeah, and I never know like what it costs to get photographs because I remember when they did the illustrated, I think it was either Da Vinci or Angels and Demons, or maybe they did both illustrated where they put in the works of art and stuff like that. It could be cool with the commentary to actually have some pictures in there too. Here's the train station where I was when this happened, and here's this, and I was here because I went to so many of the locations in the Lions of Lucerne that I've just got pictures and all this kind of stuff. So be fun to do that kind of running commentary in the book.
And maybe you should have an action figure come out.
There you go. Wouldn't that be cool?
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, we just want to touch base about Black Ice and Scandinavian fiction has really earned a revered place, I think, in modern fiction. And I wondered what your reasoning or decision behind setting the new book in Norway was.
So that's a great question, Kimberly. I am Norwegian and Swedish. So, of course, with the last name like Thor. So I got to go over to Norway. So I was in Norway and Sweden and Denmark. I'd taken my dad over. I really liked that part of the world. I'd watched some great TV that was coming out of that area. So there was a series called Trapped that was in Iceland, which was really, really good. Fortitude, which is on Amazon, I believe, that was set on actually, I think it was supposed to be Svalbard, the island that I use in Black Ice. I love that. And then there was Occupied, which was a fantastic, fantastic Scandinavian series. And it was just great writing and great acting, and it just pulled me into that part of the world. But the real reason that I set in Norway, because I've touched on Norway in other books, Norway is a NATO partner, and Norway borders Russia. And Sweden and Finland are not NATO partners. We have this kind of quasi partnership with Sweden, but they're not fully in NATO. And Norway is so important in that part of the world. We have this secret cave system where we hide all this military equipment in Norway. And it's just really cool to set stuff there. And right now, with what's going on in the Arctic Circle, where it really is a brand new Cold War that's going on up there, I said, okay, I really want to be one of the first out of the gate to set a great spy thriller up in this part of the world. And also, like Ryan was saying, I want every reader to close the book and turn on the news and go, oh, I read about that. I know exactly what's going on. That's why this is important and that kind of stuff. But this is why how I keep coming back to the office. I find stuff that gets me excited. Because it's, as David Morrell said, like David said, don't tell anybody your idea for the book, because that idea's got to power you through the next year. It's like baby names. I realized very early on, if I told somebody, oh, what are you thinking about your wife's pregnant? What are you going to name the baby? And I said, oh, and then say, oh, my ex-husband had that name, and boy, was he a jerk. We stopped telling people baby names. So David Morrell's thing about don't give people, because every time you tell people what the book's about, you give a little bit of that rocket fuel away that's got to power you through the year. So I look for things that excite me. I look for things that I think are going to be big in the news and on the world stage, but then I want to take them, make them super thrilling, a lot of intrigue, and I want to make sure. It's why I never wrote about Osama bin Laden. I knew eventually he was going to turn up dead or we'd catch him, and I didn't want to date a book. So I'm proud, 21 books in, you can pick up any of my books at any time, and there's nothing that's going to tie you to a particular piece of history where you go, oh, I know how this ends. I know what happened in the real world, so I know how this ends. So I love Norway. I'm crazy about Norway. It's a lot of fun. It's just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. So it was neat for me to kind of armchair travel through the pandemic. That was my escape, was writing this book and picturing myself in Norway.
Sounds heavenly. And so what's next, Brad?
Next, I've got an idea. It's funny because the publisher is now asking me. I mean, it's like, well, wait a second, we're just putting out this book, and now you want to know what next year's book is. It seems like the cycle is getting faster and faster. I always complain Christmas came earlier and earlier and earlier. And I joked with my publisher. I said, now you guys want to know before I'm even, fully out on tour and doing everything. You want to know what next summer's book is. So I've got a couple of ideas. And I have two threads that I really, really like with a very interesting thing in the middle, but I'm trying to figure out how I tie them all together. So that's really where I am right now. And in fact, I left my phone on, and I'm so lucky that my editor didn't call, because I had reached out to her before I got on with you and Ryan to say, I think I know how to tie these two together. So nothing I can say now, but I definitely have some really cool, based in real life stuff that I'm really excited about. But I want to make sure, A, nobody else has done it, and that B, I've got such an interesting take on it that it's going to be that rocket fuel, right, to get me through the whole year of writing the book.
Well, we are already excited for it, Brad. So we look forward to that. First up, though, Black Ice. It's phenomenal. Hope everyone runs out right away and gets that on pub day. And thank you so much for joining us on Thriller Talk today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Brad.
Thanks.